Hello everyone, my name is Michael. I'm going to be your host for round about the next hour. Just myself running this session with you this morning. So I'll be doing the talking in the demos and also attempting to answer any questions that you might have along the way. Today we're looking at Sage Business Cloud Accounting. It's our advanced session. If you haven't had a chance to attend the intro session yet, then just watch out for your follow-up email or just simply head along to our webpage. So www.sage.co.uk/webinars, and you'll be able to access the registration page from there. So it's the advanced session we're looking at today. Should last in the region of around about an hour. Quite a bit to get through as well. Now, just before we get stuck into the demonstrations this morning, I just want to quickly run you through a little bit of housekeeping for the live session today. So you don't need a microphone for these sessions. I'm sure I recognize some of the names on the list as well, so you'll be familiar with this one. But if you haven't attended a webinar, then you don't need a microphone. If you've got one and you enable it, it'll just automatically be muted. You can't unmute yourself during the session. So you can't verbally ask any questions, but you will be able to type the questions into the questions panel. If you can't currently see the questions panel, then all you need to do on your toolbar down the right is click the little icon. Looks like a speech bubble containing a question mark. You'll then get a little box. And also during the live session today, you can switch to full screen mode as well. So sometimes it can just make it a little bit easier for you to see things. But please keep your questions coming. If you want to engage with me, just pop your question or your comment in the questions panel. Okay, let's have a look at what we're going to be covering over the next hour. So we're going to start with bank feeds, which is a really popular feature, that one. So we'll cover that one. We'll run through, obviously, an example, give you more of an idea of what it is, what you can do with it, what it looks like, etc. We're also going to look at the process of reconciling, so looking at the manual process of reconciling your bank. We'll pick up on analysis types, which is a really simple feature, but also it just adds that extra dimension to your data. So when it comes to reporting, it means that you can narrow things down. So potentially getting a report based on by department or based on a specific project, for instance. So we'll show you how to set that up and how you can use it. Maybe give you some thoughts and ideas as to how you might use it as well. We're going to look at corrections. I think we all make mistakes. Everyone's prone to the odd one here and there. So we're going to look at two basic options for correcting transactions. Really flexible, your software. We're going to touch on reporting in today's session. And then we'll end today's session by having a quick look at the VAT return, and that will complete the demos. And then just as normal, I will just explain a little bit more about the opportunities that you've got to learn more about the software. So if you want to expand your knowledge and your skills, we'll give you an idea of what options you've got. Okay, now I will be sharing my screen this morning, but I'm going to introduce each section with the use of a slide and just tell you a little bit about it, just to try and break up the demonstration a little bit. So we'll get started. And the first area that we're going to pick up with you today is bank feeds and also rules. Now, if you've not come across the term bank feed before, most of the well-known banks will have a bank feed that you can essentially link to. So essentially, it's a way of setting up a link between your actual bank account and your account software. Now, it is with a bank feed, it is a read-only link. So essentially, as transactions clear your bank, that information can be pulled down into your accounts. And it's a different way of processing your transactions. So rather than you keying everything in manually, as those bank transactions hit your statement, it will essentially download into your accounts, and all you would do is go and fill in any missing information or change any information that may not be quite right. So things like linking it to a customer or pushing it to a specific nominal code. Now, it's estimated that if you process your transactions using a bank feed, that it will reduce the time you spend on data entry by anything up to 80%. Now, bank feeds it's not necessarily beneficial to everyone. Some of you will be sat there thinking, well, actually, I've only got a handful of transactions. I don't want to set up a bank feed. But others where you've got a lot more transactions going through your bank, you might be sat there and thinking, yeah, once you've seen the demo, actually that could save me quite a bit of time. And the idea is, I suppose, rather than you wait for your bank statement to come through the post or log on to your online banking maybe first thing every morning, you just go into the bank feed and it's whatever transactions have cleared your bank, they'll be sat there waiting to be processed. Now, setting up integration is quick, it's simple. There's a little wizard which will guide you through that setup process. Now, the rules option is a way of setting up some conditions so that as transactions download, if the software recognizes that transactions based on the conditions that you specify, then you can instruct it what you want it to do with that type of transaction. Now, initially, probably when you see rules or you hear a little about them, the most obvious thing that springs to mind is things like your regular transactions, so things like your direct debits and your standing orders. But it can be used for a range of transactions. Don't even have to be regular transactions. It just has to be something that essentially the bank feed area can latch onto. That's where rules would come in. Okay, we'll run through a quick demo though, just so you can see it in action. It will be give it a lot more meaning, I think. So we'll share my screen. We'll start running through a bit of a demonstration. Now, as you would expect, there's loads of information about bank feeds, setting it up, which banks are supported, etc. You'll find all of that available within the help area. But if I pop into banking, this is another way that you can check to see if your bank is actually has a supported feed that you can link to, is when we go into banking, we've got various panels. Now, a cash account, obviously there's nowhere for the software to integrate with and link to pull any information into your account. So it doesn't have the grey bar along the bottom of the panel. So you can't set up a feed for that one. But potentially the accounts, the relevant account types where you do have this grey bar, you're going to have an actions option. Now, for an account where you haven't yet set up a bank feed and haven't integrated it yet, on the actions drop down, you'll get an option connect to bank. If you have set up a feed, you'll get an option on the actions panel of disconnect bank. So this one's already set up. We'll come on to that one in a moment. But first of all, setting up the bank feed if your bank is supported, or maybe you just want to check whether your bank is supported. We'll click onto the actions panel, choose connect to bank. And it will give you a list of some of the more popular banks that our customers use. But you can also just type in the name of your bank. Now, if you find it, yes, it's supported. If you can't find your bank, then it's not supported. It's nice and simple. Now, let's just say this was our bank, this HSBC business account. So we just click the relevant panel, click continue. It's then going to give us essentially launch the connection wizard. So it'll give you information about what information you need, etc. So we're going to click continue. And then at this point, it's really just a case of you following that wizard through. I'm not going to work through that, but you just a case of following that wizard through. The information that you'll be prompted for it can differ depending on who it is you're trying to integrate with. So we'll just cancel out for the time being. But it's just a case of following that through, basically. Now, once you are set up, so as I mentioned, this first account here, it is already integrated with a bank feed. So rather than say 0 transactions, what we've got is your transactions will start to essentially download. And ideally, you want to keep getting this one back to 0, but when it's got a number there, it means it's got so many transactions which have been downloaded, which are sat there waiting to be processed. Now, this is just a dummy account I'm integrated with, so I only run these sessions sort of once a week, so I don't process that many, so it's quite difficult for me to keep up with it. But what you probably find is that if you do your reconciliation first thing in the morning or once a week, what you'll do is you'll go into this area and you'll process that to bring it back to 0, just to bring your accounts in line with your bank statement. So we're going to click the link to take us into the list of transactions that have been downloaded. So this is the incoming bank transactions window. Now there's 4 key bits of information for the transactions that have been downloaded from the bank. So it's the information in this left-hand column that downloads from the bank. So we got the date of the transaction. We would normally have a reference for the transaction as well. You have the value and also whether it's positive and negative. So if it's positive, it's money coming in. That value will appear in black. Now if I just scroll down, you'll see if it's negative, it appears in red. So money going out of your account. So those 4 key bits of information: date, reference, value, and whether it's a payment or a receipt. Now, when you first go into and start using a bank feed, you'll probably find there's a little bit of a grey area. That's what you tend to find. So quite commonly on bank feeds, some of them will allow you to download transactions going back maybe as far as 12 months. Some will be 6, maybe some 3. Others will be a much shorter period, and some will also just say, right, well, you can only download transactions from the point you set that up. So once it's active, it will start downloading any new transactions, but older transactions, you won't have that option. Some will also ask you, even if they do go back anything up to a year, some will actually say, right, when do you want to start downloading transactions from? You might find that some transactions download that actually you've already processed in your account. You don't need to do anything with these ones. Maybe you've already reconciled them as well. So if you've got any transactions like that, what we can do, and this is probably the one opportunity or the one time you will use the little checkbox here. So you might have a few transactions that you just want to essentially get rid of. So you can tick the box for any transactions that you do just want to get rid of because you've already processed them in your accounts, etc. And then with them ticked, click delete. Now be careful of that one because any transactions that, if just in case you had any lower down that you've ticked as well, then it will, any that are ticked, it will get rid of. So it'll just delete that transaction. You'll get the green bar at the bottom just to let you know that that's done. Right, now beyond that, what you're going to do to process your transactions is you've got these 3 options: match, create, and transfer. So we're going to select this first one here, and then we're going to click match. And the match option is used to essentially match this transaction against something that you've already entered in your accounts. So £79.86. It's a positive value, so money coming into our account. So we're going to click match, and it therefore gives you a list of possible matches. So does this money coming in, does it relate to an invoice that you've entered? So customers paid you online. Is it a credit note that's been refunded? Is it a receipt that you've already entered against a customer? So you've manually keyed in, but actually that transaction's now appeared in your bank statement. You just say, right, well, that money coming in, yes, it relates to this transaction. Is it an other receipt that you've entered? So it's just a case of you coming down and selecting the transaction or transactions that this, or the money coming in this case, whatever it relates to. So I'll just select this one as an example. We can see we've got £100 and a penny outstanding. We've received £79.86. That's what it said at the top. So I'm just going to select that one as an example, and I'm going to scroll right down to the bottom, past the list of possible matches. You can determine how many transactions will be listed, just like, you know, when you're displaying customer records, etc. And then beneath that, it will list the transactions that you have selected. Now, if I had selected more than one, obviously it will list them. It will list them all. So we'll just get rid of that additional one I just selected there. Now, all I need to do to get this transaction entered in my accounts is I just need to, if necessary, change the payment method. And also in this case, I need to amend the value as well. So I've actually received 79.86. So I'll just click match and return back to the list of incoming bank transactions, and that transaction's now gone. So we've processed that one, it's in our accounts. We've done everything we need to do with that one. Now, obviously, was it negative value and you went down the match option, it would give you the appropriate transactions relating to that one as well. This time though, we're going to click the create option. Now, as the more you use bank feeds as well, the more automated it's going to start becoming. It will learn from what you've specified previously, and also try best guess as well if you've never processed a certain transaction before. So if it doesn't recognize it at all. But it's a bit like yourself. If you were looking at your bank statement, you would just say, oh yeah, I recognize that one. It relates to this. Now this one, we've got £75 going out of one of our accounts. And I'm going to say, right, I've got nothing entered in my account, so I'm not going to use the match option. I need to create something new for this one. So I'm going to choose the create option. So because it's money going out, this is a bit like doing essentially, I suppose, like a bit like an other payment. So I'm not going to link it to a contact. The payment reference, whatever downloads from your bank, it will automatically be transferred across as normal. You can amend that if needed. Choose your payment method and then choose your ledger account. Now I'm just going to leave it set to that one that it's picked up by default. Obviously you can change it if needed. Obviously it picks up the VAT rate that you've got assigned to this ledger account, but again, that can be changed as well. Now, if you needed to split this £75 expense between maybe multiple ledger accounts, you've got this little sort of fork icon. You give that a click, and then what you'd be able to do is amend the line value, just as if you were entering an other payment, for instance, and then it will give you a second line, etc. So you can split it if necessary. I'll just cancel that split though. So fill in your information, split it if you need to, otherwise you click create. So that's now entered that, essentially that other payment into my accounts. So again, nice and easy to process your transactions via the bank feed. Now, if you think about that transaction that I've just entered, all I did was, well, actually I didn't make it. I don't think I made any changes there. I just accepted everything it picked up automatically, and I'll just click create. If I was doing that manually, I would have gone into the banking area. I would have chosen or accessed the transaction drop-down, chose the transaction type. So let's say it would have been a payment, and then we would have chosen the payment type, so other payment in this example, and then I would have filled in all the information. So which bank account the money was coming out of, what date, reference, what ledger account I want to link it to, values, details, etc. So a lot more information to enter if I was doing it manually than processing it via this incoming bank transactions screen. Again, another good example is, let's just pick on this one. It's defaulted to transfer this one. So 54.90 going out. Now, again, you probably look at it, and yours will probably, when you're looking at your bank statement, probably got more meaningful narratives against them, so more meaningful references. But whatever that reference is, it will transfer it across. Now, if you've used your accounting software for any length of time, you're probably familiar. If you want to move funds between bank accounts, use the transfer option. Now, because it's a negative value and we've got transfer selected, it will say, right, which account did you transfer that money to? If it was a positive value, such as this one, and you choose transfer, it's going to say, right, which account did you transfer that money from? Where's it come from? So again, if I was doing that manually, I'd be into banking, choosing the transaction menu, choosing bank transfer, and then filling in all of the options, which account is money going from, to, date, reference, details, value. So quite a bit more to fill in. In this instance, all I'm doing is I'm just making sure I've got the right bank account selected. I click transfer, and that's the bank transfer done. So as I say, the idea is you'd come into this screen and just work through your transactions to bring the bank account within your account up to date. So that's the basics of using Bankfeed. Now, the other option to quickly mention to you is the create rule option. Now, let's see if I've got one with a good description. We'll just pick this one as an example. And what you can do with your transaction is you can create a rule based on the transaction. Now, let's say this was, actually, that's probably a bad example, that one. Let's choose another one. See if I've got one. Actually, I'll just go back up and choose another one. So let's say we've got, trying to find a one. This one's got a reference, so I'll use that one. Now, obviously, normally with references, it's probably going to be the company name or maybe your account number. So making it much easier when you look at your bank to recognize it. But mine's got loads of random information on my demo account. So we got the reference 1156. And we got an amount of 55.56 going out. Now let's say this one was vehicle fuel. So it's just a standard sort of expense. And we'll choose the relevant ledger account. And I'll just say everything else is correct. Now I could come down each time and I see that transaction and say, right, I want to create that transaction. But to save me getting involved with that one, if it's always going to have the same reference when it downloads, so if you go to the same garage every time, for instance, you probably find it's always got the same reference. The amount might change, but probably always going to have the same reference. So there's something there that you can latch onto. And in that instance, we can create a rule. So we'll give it a name, fuel. It knows it's a payment because it was a negative amount. And it picks up two conditions automatically, a reference and the amount. Now, chances are, unless you're really really hot on the old petrol pump, you're probably going to have a slightly different amount in every single time. So if you've got transactions where you do want to set up a rule where the amount might change, then you don't want to leave this condition specified. You would get rid of that one. If it was a direct debit or a standing order where maybe the value will be the same each and every time, then you could leave that condition in. So what we're saying is when you download any transaction, if there's a payment with the reference, in our case 1156, what I want you to do is this. I want you to post that as another payment. Leave the method set to credit debit card. Leave the reference as is. I'll just say fuel. And then I want you to post it to this ledger account, and I want you to use this VAT rate. Now I can specify the analysis types as well, but we're going to come back to analysis types a little bit later on in the session. But other than that, I just click save. And that's the rule set up at that point. Now what that will mean in the future, so let's just cancel out of that one, is that as transactions do download in the future, so obviously it'll keep refreshing automatically, but you'll then be prompted at the top. So if it spots anything that it recognizes it based on the rules that you've got entered, it will either say match found, but it will also give you a prompt at the top saying X number of transactions have been found based on the rules that you've set up. Do you want to process these? And you can basically click the option, then it will strip those transactions out of the list and process them automatically. There is an option to review those transactions beforehand, but otherwise, what you'll probably find is you gain a little bit of confidence with it. You'll probably just click the option to say, yeah, process, pop those into my accounts for me. Now, rules are something that you will build up over a period of time. The more rules you have, the more automated it's going to be. The more automated it's going to be, the more time you're going to save. But that's Bankfeeds in a nutshell. Now, Stephanie, you mentioned that your bank isn't supported. Not all banks are, but if anyone needs to check, as I said, you can go into the help check it that way. Or you can just work through that sort of the setup wizard and see if your bank's there. You can always cancel out of that one, whether you find it or not. Right, okay, we're going to go back to the slides at this stage. So as I say, that's bank feeds in a nutshell. For some of you, you'll think, yeah, I could use that. That'll be great. It'd be a big time saver. Others, you might think, well, is it for me or not? Now, you can always connect if your bank is supported. And then if you don't want to use it, you can then disconnect if you want as well. It's not something that you have to permanently commit to. But we're going to go back to the slides and we're going to move on, and we're going to next look at bank reconciliation, so the process of manually reconciling. Now, bank feeds has essentially almost done that for you. You're not waiting for a bank statement. You're not having to log on to your online banking. Those transactions just automatically download, and you match the transactions in your accounts against those transactions. So it's a much slicker way of doing your reconciliation if you use a bank feed. Now, if you've not really come across the term bank reconciliation before, I'm sure most of you probably have. It's a way of, I suppose, just matching off your transactions that you've entered in your accounts against your bank statement, your online banking, or as we've just seen, against a bank feed. It helps you to identify missing transactions, maybe potential errors as well. So have you entered something, if you've keyed it in manually, have you keyed it in for the wrong value? Could have been X number of pounds and 45 pence rather than you've keyed in as 54 pence. So that type of thing, it can help you to identify. And obviously it just means that your accounts is up to date and accurate. So we'll just have a quick look at this process. At the end of the day, I suppose this is the process itself is a ticking exercise. So just ticking off your transactions in your accounts, the ones that have appeared on your bank statement. So we'll pop back to my screen. We'll close out of the bank feed window, back to banking. And I'll just pick on this account, this MasterCard account, see if I've got anything against this one. So we'll click into the account, and then you've got the reconcile option at the top here. Now, when we go in, I've got some transactions, that's all right. Let me just reset that window. Right, so when we go into the bank reconciliation window, the first thing you're going to be prompted to do is enter the date that you want to reconcile up to. So if you've got a bank statement or you're using your online banking, when does that run up to? So pop in your date, pop in your statement end balance. Again, if it's a paper statement, what's the closing balance on that statement? If it's your online banking, it's probably just going to be whatever your bank balance is as at now. So we'll pop in your end balance anyway. You can also enter a reference. Now, if you've got a paper statement, you'll probably have some sort of reference number on there. If you don't, then you'll probably just enter something like the date. So if I do 2022, we'll do, actually we're in July now, and we'll do 06. But you could enter anything in the reference. If you make any changes at the top, click apply. Now, before you start ticking off your transactions and working through your statement or your online banking transactions, what I would always recommend you do is come down to the bottom and check this starting balance. Does it agree with the opening balance either on your statement or the brought forward balance where you're picking up from if you're using online banking? If it does, great. You can go back up and start matching off your transactions. If it doesn't agree, and there can be a number of reasons why it might not. And sometimes if you've never reconciled before, getting your starting balance into the correct position is probably the most difficult part of reconciling. If anyone needs any advice on that one, please get in touch with our support team. We can just point you in the right direction or give you a bit of advice on what the best course of action is. So anyway, make sure that's right. If it is right, what you can then do is start working through the transactions that have cleared your bank. Now, let's just say the first transaction we're looking for is, we'll just say it was this one. So it's money coming into our account for 84.53. So I'm going to tick that. Now, when you tick a transaction, I always recommend this one, bit of a foolproof method. Just pop back down to the bottom and just check that reconcile balance. Does it agree with the running balance on your bank statement? If it does, right, move on to the next one. If it doesn't, and this sort of goes back to when I was mentioning maybe you've keyed in the pence the wrong way around. Maybe you've keyed in the whole transaction the wrong way around. So you've entered it as a payment rather than a receipt, or vice versa. So when you select a transaction, obviously it should adjust this value by the correct amount. So if it agrees, fine, move on to the next one. If it doesn't agree, then what you've just selected, the transaction you've just ticked, there's something wrong about that one. So again, it might be the value, it might be you've entered it the wrong way around. If everything agrees though, it's then just a case of continuing to work through your bank transactions. So easy enough. Now there's probably going to be some transactions that maybe you've entered that haven't cleared yet. That's fine. You just leave them there. You don't have to tick everything. But once you're done, and actually I must mention as well, if you're working through the likes of your bank statement, you come across any transactions that maybe you haven't entered yet. So a bit like when we looked at the bank feed before, it downloaded a transaction and I used the create option because there's nothing in my accounts relating to that transaction. So if you come across that sort of thing, interest and charges can easily be entered via the option at the top here. But otherwise, if it was anything else, what you can do, just at the bottom, you've got an option to save for later. So you could click that option and then go and enter your transaction. And then as and when you're ready, come back into the bank record, click reconcile. And basically it's going to take you back to the position and so you can pick up where you left off. So obviously that transaction should now be listed. So that's the reconciliation in a nutshell. You're just working through those transactions, ticking them off as you go. And when everything agrees and you've worked through all your transactions, you've got this finish option at the bottom. All that'll do, it'll flag your transactions as having cleared your bank at that point. So it's a nice simple process, and once you're in the routine of it, it's really straightforward. So that's reconciliation in a nutshell. Right, going to go back to the slides and we're going to move on, and I'm going to pick up on analysis types next. Now, analysis types is split into two key areas. You've got transaction analysis and you've got group analysis. Now, both analysis areas can be customized to suit your needs. Now, this can be, sometimes this can be a discussion in its own right with our support team. What should I use it for? Can I use it for this? Can I use it for that? Really, you can use it for whatever you want. So transaction analysis, it's used for flagging your transactions, as it would suggest. So you might want to flag your transactions, your income and expenditure against things like departments, cost centers, projects. Now, you've got three options in each area, and you can change their use if you want to. But departments, cost centers, and projects by far the most common. You've got group analysis. Now, group analysis is used for flagging your records, such as your contacts, your customers, and your suppliers, your products and your service records. So for instance, your customers, you might categorize your customers into different groups, such as you might have retail customers and trade customers. You can flag them accordingly. You can report on that as well. You might have certain account managers. You might have them set up as an analysis type, in which case within your customer record, you could say, right, the account manager for this customer is, and select one of your account managers from the list. Now, the idea of applying these analysis types to your transactions in your records is that you can then report on that. So it acts as an extra filter. So rather than just produce a profit and loss report, for instance, you could then apply a departmental filter. So you've got a departmental profit and loss, or you could say, right, I want to run this profit and loss for this project. All of a sudden, you've now got a project profitability report. You can see all the income and expenses based on that project. So let's have a quick look at it anyway, and maybe give you some food for thought as to what you would use it for along the way as well. Anyway, back into Sage. So we'll just cancel out of the reconciliation window that we were in. I'm going to go into settings and then choose business settings. In business settings, we just come down to financial settings and then choose analysis types. So this is where it's split into the two options, transaction analysis and group analysis. The layout for each of them, if I just toggle between the two, is pretty much the same. So let's just concentrate on transaction analysis. Now we've got the three options. You are restricted to three options as well. So there's three available in transaction analysis, three available within group analysis. I've got the defaults that are set up still within my account. So I've got department, cost center, and project. If you want to use one for something completely different, just click it, click the little edit icon, and then you can change the title. But if we just pick on departments as an example, when I highlight departments, it will give me a list of the departments that I've got set up. Now to set up your departments, all you do is you find your first blank line and you'll type in some sort of code, whatever you want that to be. Code can be up to 10 characters. And then you'll also need to enter a name, which is anything up to 50 characters. And you can continue entering as many as you want. So just as an example, if I type in shop 3, you'll see as I type that, it gives me another blank line. So that's just going to keep going on indefinitely there. But let's get rid of that one. So pop in your codes, your associated names. And then one thing to be aware of is this active areas. Now, what we're saying with the active areas is for the department transaction analysis type is when I'm working in these areas, this is where I want to be able to specify a department. So you need to tick the appropriate boxes. So if you're using them for something else, do make sure you check this section. Otherwise, you might be entering the likes of a bank payment and you think, well, why can't I specify a department? It's because for the department analysis type, you haven't got the relevant option ticked to be presented with that option when you're working in that area. So make sure you've got the appropriate options ticked. If you make any changes, just at the bottom, click Save, and that's it done. Now, what I'm going to quickly do, just to show you how easy it is to use the analysis types, and I'm going to bring analysis types into the next couple of sections as well. And I'm just going to quickly pop into banking. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly enter an expense. So we'll choose the payment option. Right, now I'm just going to do an other payment. I'll leave the supplier blank as it's optional. Choose the relevant bank account. Select the method. Just leave it set as it is. Date, reference. Just type fuel. Now I've purposely typed that in wrong just in case you're looking and thinking, Michael can't type. Not very quick at typing, but at least I can spell fuel. I've purposely typed that in wrong. What I'm then going to do, we'll just say it was £50. Say it was £50 exactly. And then we come down and we start filling in the details. Now I'm going to leave the ledger account just as it was as well. And I'll just say diesel for van. And you can see we've got the three analysis types. So if you wanted to specify a department for this expense, just from the drop down, we would just choose the appropriate one. Now, if we needed to split an expense like this £50, maybe we need to break it down between different departments. What we need to do is amend the item line value and then enter a second, third, depending on how many lines or different departments you need to allocate that against. Similar as if you were allocating or analyzing the expense against different ledger accounts or VAT rates. But for this point, or at this stage, I'm just going to click Save. I'm going to include the mistakes in there, which is fine. But that's how easy it is to specify the likes of a department when you're entering transactions. Right, Now, next, we're going to go back to the slides and we're going to pick up on corrections next. Now, we all make mistakes. I think if you're like me, at the beginning of lockdown, or what seems like years and years ago now, you probably thought, oh, I'll work from home. There'll be no distractions. But you do see people on Teams chats and Zoom calls, and you see people with pets running across their keyboards and kids running around in the background and doorbell going and people get pulled away. So probably just quite a few distractions still. So people still tend to make mistakes. Obviously, the more experience you gain with something, and hopefully the fewer distractions there are as well, the less mistakes you're likely to make. But your software is very forgiving. It's really flexible. And I'm going to give you an example using these two options. So you can edit your transactions individually, but you've also got a bulk editor as well. Now, the bulk editor will enable you to amend up to 1,000 transactions at a time. The bulk editor, you'll probably find it doesn't get a lot of use from yourself, but it's ideal if you've maybe just saw that bit of the demo where we're looking at analysis types and you think, well, I haven't been using them so far, but I've now got X number of transactions or a couple of months of transactions that I possibly need to amend because I've thought of a use for it. Now, there's loads of information within our help center to do with corrections. As you can probably imagine, we get asked loads of questions about where people have made mistakes and need to correct something. So loads of information and advice about correcting transactions within your software. So I just want to cover the two very basic options for correcting transactions at this stage. I'm going to go back to the slides and we're just going to pop into the current account that we just posted that transaction against. So on the activity tab, we can see we've got the transaction for fuel, the one with a typo that we've literally just entered. Now, if you're looking at a transaction, you just want to find out more about it, generally you can just click on it. Now, in this case, because I've just posted it, I can just about change whatever I want. There will be instances where maybe transactions are being VAT reconciled, so it's not as flexible as what I'm about to show you. But again, remember, if you need any advice, our support team is on hand as well. So you can change whatever you want at this point. If I need to change the date or correct that typo that we popped in before, maybe I've specified the wrong ledger account. So we now choose the right one. Again, maybe we didn't split it, but maybe we now want to. You can specify your department or the other analysis options that you have available to you. So really easy to correct transactions on an individual basis. I'll just save the changes. That's it done. Right, now that's editing transactions individually. What we're also going to look at is editing transactions in bulk. So we'll find the option in question on the adjustments menu, and then you have an option, correct transactions. Now all we need to do, we click make correction, and then we need to specify some conditions. So I'm going to base this around that fuel account that we just used. So choose the relevant ledger account. Obviously I can specify more than one. I can specify multiple fields as well if I needed to. So I wanted to find all transactions that have been posted to this ledger account that have been, let's say, since, what I'm going to say is after the 31st of May. So we've got two conditions. So we'll click search, should find some transactions for me. And all I need to do if I want to make amends to them is select them. So remember, this is used for editing transactions in bulk, making the same change. So this is where potentially you could have amended up to 1,000 simultaneously. So we'll make your selection. We then click next, and then you need to specify what it is that you want to change. Now, it's not as flexible as editing a transaction individually, so you'll see that these are the options that I can amend. I can amend the ledger account, and then the 3 analysis types. I can't amend the dates, the values, VAT rates. I can't amend details reference. I can't amend that within this screen. So, but it is ideal if you're maybe either yourself or maybe one of your colleagues new to accounting that maybe they're always specifying the wrong ledger account. Easier to change it. But you can also, this is where if you've maybe just discovered the analysis types, this is where you can say, right, I want to amend the department for the selected transactions. I want to allocate them to the, let's say, the sales department. So I'll just do that one change. I could pop in a reason if I wanted to, but I'm just going to leave it blank. It is optional, that field. Coming down, it will list the transactions that I'd previously selected. So just the 2. All I need to do at that point, click review. Tell me what's about to happen. Click update. So a little spinning wheel, and then we'll return back to the make correction window. That's it done. Those 2 transactions that I've now selected, you can see in the department column, they're now allocated to that sales department. And all I need to do at that point is just click done at the bottom and return to the correct transactions window. It's listed here if I needed to see it at all. Otherwise, that's it done. But you'll probably find that you're much more likely to edit transactions on an individual basis. Right, let's pop back to the slides. So I've got 2 areas left to cover with you today. Reporting, which should just take us a couple of minutes. And then we're going to have a quick look at the VAT return. Now, reporting, as you'd expect, I think with any accounting software, you're going to have a suite of reports, and obviously Business Cloud accounting is no different. So I think you'd fully expect to have a profit and loss, a balance sheet, trial balance. Might be something that you don't touch yourself. Maybe you just leave that to the accountant, but you do have them available. As well as I say, a raft of other reports as well. When you run reports, easier to drill down on the information, so you can go from a top level figure all the way down to transaction information very, very quickly. And the one bit of advice I always give people when it comes to reporting is have a go of them. Have a look at the reports and see what's there. Can you get at the information you want? Do you understand the information that's included on a report? So have a look at that. Now, if we just have a quick look at reports, so I'll switch back to my screen and access reporting via the toolbar at the top. You'll see there's some quick links on a drop down here, but if I just click reporting, it will take me into a list of all of the reports that I've got available. Now, the reports that you do have available will vary depending on the level of software you're on, so whether you're on Start, Standard or Plus. But you've got the profit and loss, you've got the balance sheet. If I scroll down a bit, you've got a trial balance, and age debtors, and nominal activity reports, audit trails. So if you wanted a list of maybe transactions that have been entered within a date range, for instance. So have a look what's there. To run a report, if you find the right one, just give it a click. So we'll just run the profit and loss. Initially, it's run that profit and loss there for the company as a whole. And it's run it for the current month. I can amend the date range criteria if I want to. So I've got some quick links on there, but you've also got the option to do a custom range. So let's say I wanted to run a report from, let's say the 10th of February to 25th of April. I could do that. I can specify that via the custom range. You can also as well click the More link. And from that More drop down, we've got the analysis type. So I'll say, right, I want to run this report for departments, and I want to run it for my sales department. But let's just go back to the date range there. We'll choose this financial year. I'll click calculate, and it'll regenerate the figures for me based on the type of report, profit and loss, and also the additional criteria that I've run it for, so the date range and also a department in this case. So it runs the report. Obviously not a lot of information on that one. Now, if you've been running reports already and maybe you've been hunting around looking for print option, how do I print it out? Or maybe you've been using print screen. Don't worry, there is a print option available for you. All you need to do is choose the export menu. You've currently got two options as it stands. CSV, useful for help if you need to transfer information to other software, like Excel, for instance. But you've also got PDF. PDF is probably along the lines of what you'd expect if you going down the preview option. So it previews a copy of the report. Now, when you're previewing that report, or previewing the PDF, you've got two options in the top right. You've got the option to download it in case you want to save it, maybe as a PDF copy, save it to your PC, but it's also where you'll find the print option as well. So just to confirm that, you run your report, then export PDF, and then that's where you'll find you've got the print option at the top should you need it. But again, I can't stress this one enough. Have a go of your reports. You're not going to do any harm by running a report. Just reading the information in your accounts. So have a go. If you become a cropper, you're not sure what a report shows, or you just don't understand it at all, or if you've got other queries on the reports, yes, there is information within the online help, but also our support team is on hand if you need any assistance. Right, let's go back to the slides. The final area that we're going to cover with you today is the VAT return. Now, VAT, as I'm sure you're well aware, can be a complicated topic, VAT. It's quite a large government department dedicated to the wonderful world of VAT. So it can be a complicated topic. But the actual process of generating your VAT return and submitting it online isn't a difficult task. Now, some of you will be on the session today, or maybe watch a recording of this session because of Making Tax Digital. So you might be brand new to accounting software. So obviously Making Tax Digital originally rolled out way back, well, what seems way back in 2019. And in 2022, it was rolled out to all VAT registered businesses in the UK. So originally it was, if you were VAT registered in the UK and your taxable turnover was above the VAT threshold, MTD applied to you back in 2019. And since then, as of 1st of April of this year, it now applies to all VAT registered businesses, irrespective of what the taxable turnover is. Now, Making Tax Digital brings in a number of requirements. And to keep it simple, you need to keep and maintain digital VAT records. So as long as you're recording your VATable transactions and the details of them within likes of Sage Business Cloud, then you've got that one covered. Another requirement is that you must use that software as well to generate your VAT return. So it should be capable of calculating your VAT return automatically. And that software should also be capable of enabling you to submit your VAT returns online. So I'm going to run through a little video in just a moment for calculating, validating, and submitting the VAT return. So I've got a bit of a timeline for MTD as well. So as I mentioned, MTD for VAT was launched way back in 2019. So it did apply to a lot of UK businesses at the time that were VAT registered. But there was also a group of deferred, what HMRC referred to as deferred companies. So things like, I think, councils, trusts, charities, that type of thing. Number of other requirements as well. If you did a group VAT return as well, again, that was something that was also classed as being deferred. And those companies, MTD kicked in October 2019. But coming all the way just about up to date as of this year, April 2022, MTD now applies to all VAT registered businesses, regardless of turnover. So you must follow the rules relating to MTD. But anyway, it's nothing to be scared of. A lot of people think actually generating the VAT return and submitting it online is going to be a complicated process. It isn't. Now, what I do have is I've got a little video that I'm going to play for you. Now, this is a little video of that we used at the time to demonstrate MTD when it first went live back in April 2019. So it's got some older dates on there, but it will give you an idea of what the process looks like to generate a VAT return and also submit that online. It's probably a lot easier than you think. Let me share my screen. We'll just set this video playing, and I'll just talk over the top of it to give you an idea of what that process looks like. So to generate a VAT return, into reporting, you choose VAT returns, and then you'll click create VAT return. Now, when the VAT return appears, all you're going to do is you're going to click calculate. When you click calculate, based on your VAT scheme that you set up on, based on the VAT period, and of course the transactions that you've entered with the relevant VAT rates, etc. So based around that, it will calculate your VAT return figures. So nice and easy to generate a VAT return. Obviously, you're probably going to maybe want to print it out. So you've got an option for that one. You've also got detailed reports available as well. So if you want to maybe print it out so you can check your figures, etc. But let's say you agree with those figures and you want to submit online. You'll select the option submit online to HMRC. You then click save. You get a message pop up. So it's a bit like saying, are you sure you want to do this? So you click finalize and submit. It adds the VAT return to the VAT returns list that you just generated, and that makes the submission for you. And that's how easy it is to generate a VAT return and submit it online to HMRC. Now, yes, obviously, as I mentioned, VAT itself, it can be a complicated topic, but the process itself of generating that VAT return and submitting it online isn't a complicated process. As you would expect, you'll find step-by-step guides, etc., available within the online help. And that brings me nicely onto the further learning options that you've got available to you. So online help, I keep mentioning that one. I think we first introduced you to that one on the intro session. Again, if you haven't had a chance to attend the intro session, please get yourself signed up for one. So we run it on a regular basis. Links are included on your follow-up email, or again, just head along to sage.co.uk/webinars. You can access the registration pages there. Beyond the online help, if you still need some assistance, then get in touch with our support team. To do that, any help page within the online help, scroll down at the bottom, choose the option get in touch, fill in the 3 boxes that it asks you to complete. That will outline the options for getting in touch with our support team. There's Sage University. If you like bite-sized learning and e-learning courses, maybe you want to complete some certification options for your software. Just learn more about your day-to-day tasks, processes such as generating a VAT return or reconciling your bank. Then do check those out. We've included a link on your follow-up email, but again, just head along to sageu.com. That's our company name, Sage, and then the letter U for university. So sageu.com. You'll need to set yourself up with a logon, but that's a nice quick process, that one. And then you can start taking advantage of the free e-learning courses and the bite-sized learning options that are available. But I have included, if you're on the live session today, the follow-up email that you're going to receive afterwards. It will include the link to the current curriculum that you have available. Finally, webinars. Now, if you've got any thoughts and ideas that you'd like to share with us about maybe future topics that you'd like to see covered, how we can improve webinars, anything like that, there should be a little survey pop up as you leave the session today. If you can take a minute to complete that, it'd be greatly appreciated. So if you want to share any ideas and thoughts with us, great. So loads of options for expanding your knowledge and your skills of using the software. Now that brings me to the end of the session. I've got one question from Stephanie from the very beginning. Stephanie, I'm just going to email you an answer to your query. I think it's probably a little bit easier for me to do that one. It's quite a bit more specific, that one. It's obviously an area that we haven't covered in today's session. If you think of anything after you leave the webinar, do remember about the online help and getting in touch with our support team. I'm sure you will think of things as you use the software. So no need to struggle with anything. No need to let anything hold you back. Just get in touch. So that brings us to the end of the session. Thanks for coming along. Hope you've enjoyed it. And watch out for your follow-up email. If you've got any feedback as well, if you could take a minute to complete that little short survey that pops up as you leave the session today, we greatly appreciate it. Otherwise, take care, stay safe, and hopefully I'll see you on some future sessions. Many thanks.